75 years of music that did more than fill silence, it repaired it. Stevie Wonder stands as one of those rare figures who didn't just define sound, but reshaped how emotion itself could be heard. A man who never experienced sight, yet somehow helped an entire world perceive feeling more clearly than ever before. 25 Grammy Awards, over 100 million records sold, and a catalog of songs so deeply embedded in human memory that people who weren't even born when they were released still react to them as if they've always known them. But his legacy isn't just about success, it's about transformation. He didn't perform music, he redefined what it could carry. From Saginaw, Michigan, came a blind child who turned absence of light into some of the most vivid soundscapes ever recorded. A voice that crossed political divides, softened hardened hearts, and reached places language alone never could. Yet the image the world holds, the smile, the rhythm, the warmth, only tells part of the story. Beneath it is something far more complicated. A life marked not only by brilliance, but by loss, pressure, collapse, and battles the public never saw. A childhood shaped by limitation. A body that would betray itself in silence. Relationships strained by forces fame couldn't fix. Children growing up around a man often physically present, but emotionally pulled elsewhere. And later, whispers from those closest to him suggesting that even the final chapters of his life are carrying weight the world was never prepared to hear. For decades, audiences have celebrated the light, but the shadows behind it were never part of the performance. Before continuing, it's worth saying this plainly. If any of his songs ever made you feel something you couldn't explain, that connection is part of why his story matters. Not as a tribute for numbers or metrics, but as recognition of a life that changed how people experience emotion through sound. What follows isn't just the story of a musician, it's the story of how he was formed. Born in 1950 in Saginaw, Michigan, Stevie Wonder arrived 6 weeks early and fighting for life. An oxygen incubator saved him, but permanently damaged his eyes, leaving him blind before he could understand the world. His mother, Lula Mae Hardaway, just 21, raised him in hardship after moving the family to Detroit. His father was absent. Life was unstable, survival constant. But something rare formed inside that struggle. He didn't hear the world, he built it through sound. Rhythm and tone became his vision, and that difference would define everything. But behind the music, his life was unsettled. Relationships came and went. He became a father with different partners. Love was real, but time was not. He was often present in body, absent in rhythm, always moving, always pulled away. That contradiction defined him. Constantly surrounded, yet deeply alone in a way fame only intensifies. As the 1970s turned into the 1980s, success exploded. Awards, influence, global reach, his voice became culture itself. But the higher he rose, the heavier it became. The world heard brilliance, but not its cost. Because the light was real, but so was the strain behind it. He met Kai Millard Morris in the late 1990s. They married in 2001 and had 2 sons. For a brief moment, it felt like stability. But in his life, stability rarely stays. By 2009, the marriage ended. What followed was distance, emotional absence, disputes, and the slow breakdown of a life once shared. Those close to them described a simple truth. Love existed, but presence did not always follow. His life made consistency difficult, even when feeling was real. Their children grew within that contradiction. Loved, but not always fully held in daily presence. And here lies the tension the public rarely confronts. This was the man who wrote Isn't She Lovely and You Are the Sunshine of My Life. Songs that defined love were created by someone who struggled to sustain its everyday form. But this isn't a contradiction, it's the pattern. Emotional depth does not guarantee emotional availability. Genius does not cancel human limitation. He could translate love into music, but living it continuously required something different. The public let the story fade, because it is easier to remember the voice than its fractures. But private grief doesn't fade, it settles. And it settled where applause could not reach. In later years, he has become quieter than a symbol. Marked by time and illness, he is choosing rest, his children, and himself. living not as a performance, but as a person. The world gave him its highest honors, and he accepted them with grace, knowing what they represented and what they could not measure. Because awards measure achievement, not cost. What they never measured was what it took to sustain the music behind them. Years of dialysis, marriages that dissolved under pressure no structure could absorb, children who needed presence more than legacy, a mother whose absence left a silence no composition could ever fully answer, friends, artists, peers, constants, lowered into graves one by one, each loss adding weight the public never had to carry. And yet, through all of it, he continued. He once said music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand. People remember it as a statement about listeners, but it was also a confession about survival. Music was not just expression for him, it was geography, a place he could enter when the physical world failed to accommodate him. A place where blindness disappeared, where grief could be temporarily reshaped, and where pain, without being erased, could be transformed into something shared. He built that world for 75 years. Every note offered without condition. Every album a fragment of a life placed into the hands of strangers who may not have realized how much they needed it until they heard it. What he gave was not content, it was continuity, a reminder that feeling itself can be carried forward even when life fractures around it. What we owe him now is not celebration alone, but clarity, to see him fully, not just the icon and not just the man beneath it in isolation, but both at once. The triumph and the exhaustion, the brilliance and the cost, the light he gave and the darkness he carried. Because separating those things makes the story easier, but it also makes it false. He was born unable to see, and spent a lifetime teaching others how to. If his music has ever reached you in a way words could not, it has already done what it was meant to do, bridge something private inside you to something shared. And when you hear it again, the opening pulse of superstition, the tenderness of Isn't She Lovely, the fragile brightness of You Are the Sunshine of My Life, it doesn't belong only to memory or nostalgia. It belongs to what it took to make it, the incubator, the poverty, the silence after loss, the long hospital years, the marriages that ended, the chair where healing had to happen slowly, the graves that marked time more than calendars ever could. All of it is inside the music, not as tragedy alone, but as transformation. And then the songs continue anyway, because that was always the point. Not that life is easy, but that even in its weight, it can still be sung.